Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, I've recently started this channel just as a kind of a passion project to talk about the hobby that is collecting games. Now, I truly feel that gaming is one of the greatest hobbies in the world, but like so many things, it's getting incredibly expensive. Now, I do want to focus on, the positives of the industry where possible, but I feel it's just at a very, very important point with Sony bringing up that they are completely ditching physical from 2028 onwards and how that's going to massively impact the industry. I feel from not just a collector's standpoint, but just from gamers' consumer rights. So I'm not going to spend this whole episode just moaning. I'm going to raise a few points that I feel would help me to at least be more interested in buying a PlayStation 6 or getting more invested in an all-digital future, because right now I just don't feel the things are there. I mean, think about it for yourself. How did you get into the hobby? I can almost guarantee that most people watching this are not going to be saying it was about putting their credit card details into the PlayStation store and buying something, then waiting 3 hours for it to download. A lot of us are getting into this industry or have been into the hobby of gaming through a more affordable entry points. It's about finding that, sort of cheaper copy by shopping around. It's probably by getting that physical game for a birthday or Christmas or whatever, or even just borrowing something from a friend. Someone lent you their favourite PlayStation 2 and a few games, and that got you right into the hobby. So physical media is a fantastic gateway into this, gaming as a whole. So my main issue with all digital is going to be that, having that monopoly over everything, it's that gateway gets totally locked out. Competition is healthy. If there's no second-hand market, then again, a lot of beginners, younger players, people on a budget, they're just going to be totally priced out. Now, my main kind of thesis, if you will, to sound very, very important, is that I'm not anti-digital. I'm just anti-digital only. It's not just about nostalgia, having a physical copy of something. It's about keeping the hobby accessible. It's about keeping it affordable and open to everyone. I just don't see how Sony can say, right, 80% are buying digital, so let's get rid of that 20%. Why would you want to get rid of so many people that want to buy your products? It just blows my mind. So the first point I want to just raise is about ownership and fixed prices. You all know that there's a massive difference between buying a game and what you can do with that from a shop physically, to what you're doing when you're kind of buying a license. It's very temporary. It can be revoked. And I think if you think about a company like Sony, they're probably one of the worst examples recently of being so all in on going all digital, but also showing some of the worst sides of what they can do with revoking access to things. You've had people's movie collections completely gutted, and there's constant examples of things that have been removed or delisted that you just won't see again. So think as well about just having no competition. It means that Sony can just dictate however much they want to pay, or how much they want to charge, I should say. I mean, one of my favourite Call of Duties, which isn't one of the best rated or anything like that, is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I love sci-fi. I love just big, daft, over-the-top, action-packed campaigns. Now, on the PlayStation Store right now, that's £50. Or I can go elsewhere and shop for it second hand and get it for £5 or less. So I can pay 10%. That's just the numbers there, right? I can pay 10% of what Sony's asking me, and I can do a lot more with it. I can resell it on. I can gift it to someone. I can lend it. So for me, my biggest issue is that monopoly is going to mean that you're basically paying a premium price and getting hardly any consumer rights along with that, which to me is the most kind of biggest point I feel. You're paying more for less. And I guess the second point I want to make is about the kind of preservation of games, which I know is getting more difficult as things become these gargantuan 100+ gigabyte titles with not, only 20 gigabytes of data on the disc and all these kind of things. But even just take something like, Guitar Hero. I think that's one of the best examples of license-based things that expire, no longer being able to be sold anymore. However, if we were to be all digital way back in the day, then so much of that would be completely lost media. They could potentially completely remove the access to that even if you bought a digital copy. So there'd be lots of lost media that I feel just are not worth going in on this all digital future. And sadly, companies just don't seem to be very interested in wanting to sell you their older games. They're quite happy to sell you a subscription, through PS Now or, Xbox Game Pass or expansion pass on your Nintendo so you can get access to old games and stream them. They just don't want you to actually own them, which even from a digital standpoint, I think is crazy. Obviously some spreadsheet tells them that prints more money than giving people the opportunity of choice and to own things, even if it is digitally. And I think my point 3 is going to be, and this is my own opinion about, being a collector. I think there's something quite soulless, I feel, about not having kind of things physically. Think about your emotional attachment and connection that you've got, your history with, getting a game for a birthday or getting it from someone that you no longer see or you've lost. And that's like a nice emotional connection you've got with it. Or even for me as a game collector, I think about some amazing titles that I've got really cheap, picking up, Vagrant Story for 50 pence from a car boot sale. That for me is such an iconic thing for me that I was so happy about. But, as I say, how iconic is it to put your credit card into a PlayStation store and then see a little thing pop up, and then, as I say, you wait ages for it to download. It loses a lot of its soul. I think that's maybe something that could change in future, is how you kind of buy games through digital stores could be a little bit more exciting. So the last point I just want to make is just about what I feel is kind of a blueprint that would help digital games or an all digital future to be much more consumer friendly. I don't want to just sit and moan. I want to at least try and give some constructive, sort of criticism and feedback of what would help me feel like, right, okay, if I had some of these options, I'd probably be more inclined to say I might pick up a PlayStation 6 down the line. So I think there has to be something that changes that allows things to be better to loan them. Okay, so if I buy something digital, I don't want to always just be locked to that. If I finish a game, it would be great if you could loan it out to a friend's account, for example. Lock it on mine, but give it to them for a period of time. Let them try it out. That would just allow a kind of a healthier cycle of people getting to actually experience the game, instead of me paying £70 for it and then my friend just, hearing about it because they can't pay for that. It'd be great if you could do something like that. And same thing, one of my biggest issues is about losing the second-hand market is there's no competition. So is there maybe a way that you can have like a sort of buyback scheme or a trade-in system? Let me pay £50 for a game and trade it back in, down the line for £20. Have that as like a kind of a coupon or a token or something that I can put towards something new. Again, just allowing that cycle of, out with the old, in with the new, instead of just being restricted to buying nothing but new, and being really restricted about the costs of that. And I would say one of my biggest things is also going to be about ownership rights. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, whether you're totally happy with digital, you've never bought physical in your life, or you're one of these die-hard collectors that's got, a complete inbox Saturn collection, right? I don't care what side you're on. I think for us, there has to be better ownership rights. We have to get away from this being that you've got this really temporary, fragile sort of access to a title. If I buy something digitally, I should be able to say that I can have access to that or guaranteed the right to it down the future, regardless of what Sony decides to do later on. And the same goes for inheritance. I almost feel that, don't have children, but it would be great that, I could pass on my PlayStation 2 collection, or I can hand these down as like an heirloom, all of this great gaming stuff. But with digital stuff, it's always very locked to your account, and I feel it's quite fragile. You had an example of some person losing thousands of euros worth on an online account because it was compromised, and customer service said, well, too sorry about that, nothing we can really do. So I think my conclusion is just going to be that we have to find a middle ground. Digital is great for convenience. It's incredible for indie developers. Think about, actually, one of my favourite things about the modern gaming industry is indie games, the creative stuff that they're producing. And that's not going to be available through physical. A lot of that, probably 99% of it, is all through things like Steam and the PlayStation Store. So again, we need to find that balance. But if we let physical die out, then we are completely surrendering a lot of our rights as consumers. And I do feel there's a lot of regulators and people that are, and lawmakers that are cottoning on to this, and there's a lot of pushback that side. So I hope that it brings some kind of positive changes. So we shouldn't have to choose between convenience and basic consumer rights, is I think the point that I want to make. And until the industry starts to kind of realise that and start treating gamers with the kind of respect that they deserve as consumers, let's be honest, that's what we are to these companies. And until there's better change, I'm quite happy to stay with the kind of ocean of retro stuff that's actually already available. There's no need for me. I'm not excited or hyped for anything on a PlayStation 6 or an Xbox 5. I'm quite happy that there's enough already here in front of me that I can enjoy and go through. Now, there's much better people on YouTube in the industry, more qualified to talk about this topic than myself. I just want to get that point across that, I hope that things can get better. There's John from a great channel called Good Vibe Gaming's, and I think he pointed it out perfectly when he said the very poignant quote of, "I don't need infinite choice when my time is already limited." And I think that, for me, as I say, highlights the point of I've actually got loads of things to keep me going. I've got plenty, if you've watched my recent video, I've recently picked up a PlayStation 3 and I've got nearly 30 games for it, might have over 30 games for it at this point. That's going to take me months. That's probably going to take me the rest of this year and into next year, and plenty of things on my Series X, plenty of things on my PlayStation 2. There's loads of retro titles that I've never touched before and I'm just waiting to play. That for me is going to keep me long into 2028, and I just want to know what the industry's like at that point. So thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope you found it somewhat informative, or at least that I've got my point across that I'm not anti-digital. I think there's a real place for it. It's great for the industry in terms of giving people access to games. However, I just feel that with the way the industry is going, that it just seems like spreadsheets, unobtainable targets. They all seem to be just, their eyes are lighting up, these companies, compared to what is the actual good for us as gamers and good for the industry. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully my next few videos are going to be much more positive. I do have a new capture card which has been phenomenal at getting videos of the PlayStation 3. So please look forward to some more games and more content coming up soon. Thank you very much.